I'm the host of Think Out Loud on OPB. I'm thrilled to see all of you here, and there are, for the folks standing up, there are plenty of seats if you'd rather sit, or you can stand, either way. How many of you have heard our show on the radio before? Cool, well, so for those of you, that's not exactly true. But I like the spirit of that. No, you should listen to all kinds of radio stations. So, for those of you who haven't heard our show or don't know much about what we do, normally we are a show out of a studio in Portland. We've been on the air since 2008, and in that time, we've done our best to get all around Oregon and to do shows everywhere. We were here about 2 months ago doing a couple shows, and we've really tried hard to report from Eastern Oregon and Central Oregon and Southern Oregon, so we're not just in our studio, so we can actually understand the issues that really affect people's daily lives. It's one thing to talk to somebody on the phone, but it's another to spend time with them at their business, at their ranch, in a coffee shop, in a library, in a jail, all over. So that's what brought us here today. Obviously what brought us here now, in addition to the general idea of getting out into communities all around the state, is it's now been about 2 months since the end of the occupation, and that's what we wanted to. As many of you may know, we were going to be a part of a community meeting that was canceled because of security concerns, and I'm really happy that we can be here now with all of you. So a few logistical details. If you haven't turned your cell phones off yet, now is a perfect time to do it. You can keep them on, I guess, and put them on silent, or just turn them off. We're going to keep you well entertained, or you'll keep me well entertained for the next hour. What else can I tell you? We're going to take one break about halfway through. We're going to. This is probably going to air on Monday at noon, and it'll air on the radio. There's a rebroadcast at 8 p.m. It also is available for download, and you can stream it on our website. So if in case friends of yours or family, if you want to have other people listen to this who can't hear it on the radio, there are many other ways that you can listen to it. Do you guys have any questions about the show or anything before we start? Just shout it out. No. Okay, so a few other things. We've done probably 40 shows over the years, maybe more, in front of audiences, community kind of conversations like this. And I think this is the second time that we've done one in which I was the only person facing the audience that we want to hear from. Almost always, the way we would do it is I would be up there with a couple other seats there and a couple other microphones there, and then we'd have the important people of the county or the city or the whatever up there with me, and then we'd hear a lot from them, and then we'd hear a little bit from you all in the audience. And we thought about doing that today because it makes me feel like there's a security blanket. It's less terrifying. But we didn't want to do that. The reason we're here is basically to hear from all of you. We also want to hear from some of the important people, elected officials, and other important people from this area who played roles in everything that happened over the last few months, and we will hear from them. But the way this is going to work, if this is going to work, is Stephen's going to do something here. The way it's going to work is if you all just feel free. Oh, there's a buzz. Yeah. This man is an audio genius, by the way. Anyway, so it only works if you all feel comfortable enough to throw your hands up and to make sure that our two mic runners, it's Amanda Peacher, who is our Central/Eastern Oregon correspondent, an amazing reporter who has interviewed a number of you over the last few months. She has the mic to say, where's Sage?
Sage, she'll be right back.
Okay, and the executive producer of our show, the leader of our show, who is not here at this moment, she too should be here soon, and she has a mic as well. So basically, this is maybe a ridiculously obvious point, but if you have to wait for the mic to get to you, because otherwise only the people in this room will hear you and hear your point and hear your point of view. Nobody else in the rest of Oregon will hear it. So just raise your hand, they'll find you. We'll do our best to get as many points of view in as we go. And that's basically it. How many of you, by the way, are ready right now with questions or comments or things that you want to get off your chest? Just throw your hands up. So only a handful. All right. My hope is that that many of you will do that, because that's why we're here. We honestly want to know what's going on in your lives, how you're doing right now, how you think Harney County is doing right now, and Burns is doing now, what your hopes are, what your fears are, how the occupation affected you, or maybe it didn't affect you. We'd like to hear that as well. So just, I urge you to throw your hands up and feel a part of this conversation. That's why we are here. You are why we're here. Do we know where Sage is?
Yeah, she's coming in.
Okay. So now we're going to have an awkward silence for a minute and a half.
Why
Yeah.
wasn't this advertised more?
Why wasn't this advertised more?
Someone told me about it, and I did look on the forum, the Harney County Forum, and it had it listed today, but I don't think a lot of people knew about this.
Yeah.
That's probably our fault. We put this on our website and our Facebook page, I think just last week, maybe. We're a daily show, and we're always running to get the shows ready for the next day. And we announced this on the air starting, I think, at the end of last week, or maybe even just on Monday. It had been on our Facebook page a week before that. So I don't have a great answer for you. We just, besides the fact that we move really quickly, and it's maybe a different schedule than a normal community meeting in terms of scheduling. So sorry about that. I'm glad you found out about it.
Well, I think more people would come if they'd have known.
Yeah, that's possible. I know that we're also competing with a couple other events at the very same. Our executive producer, the leader of our show, she too will get the mics to you. Well, let's just jump right in, and this is something that I'd love to hear from a number of you on. You know, apropos of the timing and the scheduling, when we announced this on our Facebook page, we got a lot of comments from people, and I got an email just yesterday from someone saying it's too early. We don't want to have folks coming to town, stirring things up, and talking about all this stuff right now. You can come and do this, but don't do it now. We got that from a number of people. Does anybody in this room agree with that? Why not? I mean, why is, yes?
Well, I just really feel that we're just starting to talk again and communicate. And I feel that sometimes when outsiders come in, they ask questions maybe not, I don't know, maybe as sensitive as sometimes you need to, because sometimes you know some people maybe be on the other side of the issue, but you're just starting to be able to talk to them again about it. And so sometimes that brings up, you know, some anger in people that can't hold their anger real well, and brings up some of those sensitive things on their nerve, maybe they're very compassionate about. I feel like we're just starting to come together and being able to talk to people on the other side of the issues, and maybe they weren't totally on the other side, like, you know, on one way or the other, but some of those hardcore issues you weren't able to talk to them about. It was just too raw.
And now you are, so what does it look like if you're talking to someone, you yourself, who's on the other side, somehow the other side of this issue?
Right. I just feel like we as a community are a strong community, and we can pull through this, and we don't need a lot of outsiders to try and help mend fences. A lot of us have lived here all of our lives. We've known each other forever, and have good, very close friends that are on the other side of the issue. And we can work through it and get through it, but it's something that I think we as a community have to work at. And we have to be able to go and visit with other people that strongly felt and find out what their compassionate was and let them be able to understand where my compassion comes from. And I know that we can come together and come out of this stronger and come with some great solutions of things that do need to happen.
Who else feels that now you're starting to talk again, to talk with neighbors and friends?
Oh. No. He just said who else
Yeah.
feels like we're just beginning to speak, and we are. There's been, there's just, it's starting to come back together a little bit at a time. And I know a lot of people are nervous about it coming up in a real big way, and making that go backwards, taking those steps back, because nobody wants that.
Including us, I should
Yeah.
add.
I know, yeah, I knew that, yeah.
But it's worth saying that. I should also say that we didn't come here to mend fences. That's not the way, as a show, we view our role. It's more to understand what the community is going through. What is it that has made it so that now you're starting to talk again?
Because that's what our town does. We have always been, I've been here since '89, and we don't always agree on everything. Never have, never will. We're humans. But we've always found a way to work around it. And that's what I think we're starting to do again, is look at our neighbors that we didn't necessarily agree with and say, you're more important than my views. And so I'm not going to shove my views down your throat. And I'm just going to respect you as a person and get on with it. Let's get on with life.
Now, both of you so far have been talking about talking, which makes me think that you mean people in person with each other. One of the things that we've heard from some of the earlier community meetings that got very heated in January was so many people from every side talking about social media forums, Facebook and other places where things, because there was some kind of anonymity or even not, but it was just people at computer screens, and that's where things got, it seems, a lot uglier than they were in person. Sir, what's your name?
Lewis Smith. I've been here since I was born here, all right? And this community wasn't talking. That was the problem, all right? Not to everybody, just to certain people. And it's like, today, everybody's talking. Everybody's going to meetings, different meetings that they would never go to, because they have a concern now, all right? It actually opened up a big door. And I think that the door needs to stay open, and that door opened up because of the media, That's, and it's been some good, healthy stuff going on for the community. Some people don't think it's that way, think that we need to shut everybody out and keep everybody out. We're part of the world. We're just not Harney County. We are a whole part of it. We send our families, our kids go all over, to colleges outside of this country. They've got to be able to feel like that they got a place to come back to.
When you say that people weren't talking before with each other, you mean before the occupation there were disagreements, but they were what, beneath the surface?
Pretty much beneath the surface, yes. Yeah.
Does that ring true to other people here? Let's get a mic to the gentleman in the back with the cowboy hat. Sir, what's your name?
I'm Todd Applegate. I'm from Vail, Oregon, actually, and we're a small town also, and we're next door in the next county, and they're talking about bringing in a monument to our county, 2.5 million acres. When we're talking about a small town, I think he's right. Our town too. You had this meeting 3 months ago, and there would have been 6 people here. But now, there's people wanting to talk on both sides, which is great. We had, we had a teen suicide in our town, a month ago, and if people talked, we maybe could have prevented that. But unfortunately, these small towns, we gotta welcome people. They're not outsiders. We're a town of 1,200. If you don't welcome people in, your town's going down. I mean, if we kick our ranchers out, I like hamburger. You know, we need to keep them. You know, but the small towns, we need to open up. Well, this is great. It's great to see people turning out, but I totally agree that 3 months ago, it wouldn't happen. You know, you wouldn't have the show in Vail or Burns or one of these small towns had anybody here. So I'm glad to see people open up a little bit, you know, because we need to. These small towns, we need to open up. Everybody's too closed up, and we could prevent a lot of things and solve a lot of problems within our own towns. When in these small towns, we recognize people who come into our town who are outsiders. It's obvious, you know. So
How do you know?
well, they're people.
You don't
are born
recognize
here.
them?
People are born here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I walked into the courthouse in Portland 2 days ago with a cowboy hat on, and he said, "Are you here for the Bundy trial?" Absolutely.
Yeah.
We know when people walk in our
You're
town.
saying it
they're
goes
not
both
going
ways.
to- Yeah, absolutely.
Sir, what's your name?
Jesse Stakar. I just want to reiterate what these guys said. I mean, yeah, it got a lot of people talking. I think all of us were afraid to bring things up early on, but I think the reasonable people in this town who've been friends for years in spite of their differences, I have friends that I could disagree with on 99 out of 100 things, the occupation being one of them, and they probably couldn't even guess where I stand on it, but they'll make an assumption. But the reasonable people were still willing to sit down and have a conversation and get along and agree to disagree like they always have. You know, this just brought out some of the people who maybe can't contain their emotions quite as easily, or people who aren't used to getting as riled up as they did in this event. I think, at least from what I've seen, from my perspective of people on both sides, I see a lot of positive things happening right now.
What's an example of a positive thing you see happening right now?
For me, you know, I've been here my whole life, not very long, but 28 years. I've never seen this much interest in a local election. Now, there may be some people that don't think that's a good thing. Frankly, I like choices. And I'll tell you right now, I'm very happy with just about everyone running for office right now. No matter how it turns out, it's going to be great, in my opinion, because we have people involved. Normally, it's run unopposed, or maybe one person running, but the whole town knows who's going to get elected anyways. That still may be the case with more people running, but at least we've got choices. We've got people excited. We've got people supporting different candidates than their neighbor, and they're still going out shaking hands with the person they're not supporting, because they're still friends. So, you know, yeah, that's all I have to say.
If you're just tuning in, this is Think Out Loud on OPB, coming to you from the Harney County Fairgrounds in Burns. It has been about 2 months since the end of the occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. Harney County Judge Steve Grasty is here. He is one of those people who has run in the past for elected office, but is not going to be running right now. Is not running right now. You're done now as of what, 8 months from now. Have you seen? You have a little bit more experience than the gentleman we just heard. Have you seen an election that has this much excitement?
Absolutely. The first time I ran, 1998, there was 8 candidates for county judge. So it has happened before, but I think it's great. I also agree with what Jesse said. Having a slate is a good thing. It's good for the community. It's opened up debate that didn't happen otherwise. I think that's the difference that I see today coming out of things. First, I heard somebody say we wouldn't have had this kind of turnout 4 months ago. Not in Harney County is true. We had in this room, when the first sage grouse meeting started, we had 250 people in here. It's pretty normal for us to turn out and express our feelings. I will say the difference I see today, for one, at a county court meeting, we'd have 4 people maybe. Now we have 30. That's a good thing. I don't like talking, just like you don't like being up there by yourself. I don't like talking to the wall. I like talking to people and I like their input. So I think that's been helpful.
How do you account for that? Because the issues that were brought up to a great extent by the occupiers, I mean, their beef, obviously, was about federal oversight. Federal, they would say, overreach. But you're talking about more interest in county politics.
So I'd say it differently. More interest in county government administration. That's what the county court does day to day. And that turnout, we don't hear the angst, we don't hear in a county court meeting, we don't hear, hey, you got to get out there and do something about the BLM. We don't hear, get out there and do something about USDA. We talk through the topics, we hear some input. Currently we hear some criticism from the candidates about budgets, but that's the norm. I think I did it years ago. So it's a norm to hear those kind of things. It's a good thing. People are looking at it. So what I see is us talking about different topics or the same topics in a different way. And I think that's a win out of these events that's happening. And I think it is drawing this community back together slowly, but I think we are getting there.
We talked a number of times in January and February. You're making a face like it was too many times. You weren't always thrilled. You were going through a lot at that time as the chief executive for the county. Looking back now, what's the big takeaway you have from that entire episode?
So, Dave, I want to correct you on something you said a minute ago, and then I'll try and answer that. You talked about the important people being up there. See all these folks behind me? Those are the important people, not the guys in the front row. It's those are the folks that this is about. And that's what's important to me.
But is that a new lesson?
Absolutely not. Never has been for me. I work for these folks. Like me, don't like me, doesn't matter. I work for these folks, and I'm going to keep working hard at that. The takeaway out of this is that we weren't talking to each other enough. Bundy didn't know it. Some of us didn't know how successful we were. The High Desert Partnership, the collaboration, the relationships that we built, we didn't know that. And it's because, and I take blame for it as a leader in this community, that we weren't saying that enough. We're doing a better job today of it.
Sheriff Dave Ward is right next to you, the Harney County Sheriff. Sheriff Ward, good to have you here.
Thank you.
At the end of the occupation, you called for people in a very emotional, short speech, the only emotional speech at this press conference, following very dry, sort of by-the-book comments by the head of the FBI in Oregon, by somebody from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Then you came on with real emotion, saying, it's time for this community to talk to each other, to get off sniping on Facebook. Do you think that's happened?
I don't Facebook.
Kids these days.
Yeah, I got rid of all that back in November.
Really?
So,
Good timing, 2 months before the occupation.
honestly, I don't have TV either. Netflix with the kids sometimes, but
Just OPB on the radio.
honestly, I'm not here to criticize anybody because I've got friends on both sides of the fence, and in most cases we agree on more than we disagree on. But I think that people do a lot better when they sit down and talk face to face. You cannot read tone in an email or a Facebook post. You can't read body language. You can't look and see if your comment has hurt your friend or your neighbor. And it hurt me to see my friends going back and forth at each other throughout this thing. So I live in this community because I like living here, and I love the people that are in it. And so to see that go through such a turbulent time as it did, while there's a lot of positive that can come out of this, absolutely, that door is wide open right now, and I think people are listening. And so it's absolutely the opportune time to get your feelings out there. But I think it's so much better to do it in person than it is to do it via text or anything like that.
It's an interesting position, bully pulpit that you're taking right now. I mean, you're as the chief law enforcement officer for the county. You're in charge of the jails, in charge of going after people who break the law. But what you're talking about now is a kind of a touchy-feely kind of thing. We should all, whether we agree or disagree, we should talk to each other. It's an interesting thing for a sheriff to be emphasizing.
Well, I don't think we're ever going to have a utopian society, but I do believe that we can all do a better job of communicating with each other. And, you know, well, that'd make my job easier.
What were you going through personally during those 41 days?
I had a lot of stress and anxiety. Not a lot of other places have gone through a similar situation. So there wasn't a ton of advice floating around out there. And it was a learning experience. I never liked school, so we can imagine how that felt. I felt like I was sitting in the classroom every day. And
What did you learn?
you know what? I learned that there's a lot of folks out there that are angry about a lot of different things, and that when you have an emotional spark like that, it all can come to the surface, which is good because I've talked to a lot of people that got stuff off their chest and feel better. You know, and at the same time, I think there's a whole lot more that needs to come out on the table. We all need to sit down together and kick it around and work towards some solutions.
So that's the sheriff. I'm curious from everybody else, what were you going through personally while this was happening? Sir, what's your name?
My name is Son Burns, and no relation to the founder of the town. The one thing that I've found really interesting, I Facebook a lot, and the one thing I found out before the occupation and during the occupation, there was a lot of opining and emoting, and a lot of people getting a lot of their angers and frustrations out, whether it was at each other or either for or against the occupation. But what I've found since, and what I've tried to do myself as I post stuff, is education. I'm a middle school math teacher here in town, and that's what I've, through all of this, has given me focus in trying to educate myself on national issues in terms of land management and how it affects us here in Harney County, and educate people about the issues on a broader global scale, and try to turn it into a positive in that way in terms of education and educating each other. I've heard, you know, we don't always agree, but as long as we're willing to educate each other and try to stay objective about it, I think it can turn into something positive. So.
The one big difference is that your students have no choice but to be there and be educated by you. But the people out there in Facebook land or in the store have no such requirement. They don't have to be educated by you.
Right, I mean, everybody's got that choice. But I think what we really have to look at is, are we doing each other a disservice by not trying to get ourselves as educated as possible? I don't know much about ranching. When I first moved out here, that was my goal, was to ranch and be a teacher, and that was it. After I got married, that kind of went downhill, but that's okay. But, you know, I've had ranchers' kids that come in through my classrooms, and I can tell you that these ranchers out here work hard. And they are what is keeping this community together. And I think that we have to support them, but I know that there are other, you know, we, in this community, it's, a lot of it's ranching, and a lot of it is government work. You know, the Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife, ODFW, they're a big presence out here as well. And what I hear on Facebook and what I hear from talking to both sides is there's a lot of collaboration, I think, that does go on behind the scenes. And I think that needs to be the focus, is how can we collaborate and help each other out for the benefit of all.
Thank you. Sir, in the back, what's your name?
Yeah, I'm Larry J. I've lived here in Burns quite a long time. There's Steve Grasty. Anyway, the question I have was for the sheriff. He said he was really upset and really down about what happened during the time of that. But then I seen a video on there where he was out dancing and having a good time after that killing. I can't see where that is called a person that really, after he just killed somebody, to be out there doing something like that, and then state, like he just stated, that he was down where he was at. It was really terrible. That's one question I have for him.
Let's stick with that question. Sheriff Ward, do you want to respond?
Well, I wasn't celebrating anyone's death. That death was tragic. I believe a lot of people worked very hard to avoid any violent outcome during this deal. The dancing that is in question was, some people were kind enough to put together a law enforcement appreciation night. It was planned weeks in advance, and yeah, I like a good song. Thank you.
We got another comment from our audience. Sir, what's your name?
Tony Atencio. He said it was like appreciation to law enforcement. I'd just like to know what the appreciation was for. Was it for the occupation takeover and how they stood their ground and did their thing, or was it for the killing of a boy Finnegan?
Sheriff Ward?
No, nobody was celebrating the death of anyone. Thank you.
All right, we've got to take a quick break. We have a lot more coming up from our audience. We're also going to hear from the two federal agencies that drew a lot of the criticism from the occupiers. Stay tuned.